there, science research nerds. Welcome to today's episode, which is all about becoming an expert in your field. And it is our second check-in for the summer. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do today is, again, talk about continuing our research. What's next? What are we going to be reading next? What can we do to help further in the development of a gap in research? Then we're going to talk all about how to be an expert in your field and some little things that we can do to kind of make it easier to learn about what the cutting edge of our field of interest is. And then lastly, we're going to get into what's due at the end of summer, and then wrap up with a little bit of advice, similar to how we did in the last video. But to start it off, I want to talk about investing in the process. And I really like the word invest. As you guys do this summer work, this work is setting the foundation for everything you're going to do in your sophomore year. So if you want to have a good project that you're going to present in front of the entire class, this is helping you get to that point. If you want to go to the science research competition for sophomores that we're going to go to as a class in June, present your work to some judges and win an award, this is where it starts. So invest in this process. It takes time. This is not something that you can do last minute. And I can't emphasize that enough. It really is not something you can do last minute. So let's invest in the process. Let's take the time that we need to go through this process and do this work honestly at a high level. So let's talk now about continuing our research and what we need to be reading. So first off, we want to now start addressing the needs of our story. So thinking about you guys, set up your little funnel, and maybe it had some blank spaces. So focus on some articles that are going to give you the info you need to kind of fill in those spaces, right? And then also always be focusing on that gap in research. What additional info do you need to know? What next steps do you need to learn about in order to identify what that gap in research is and to tell your story to get to that gap in research? So the new articles that you should be finding, we should have 8 of them. So at this point, I'm asking you to read 2 more articles. So this is less than last time because at this point, I want it to be more targeted. I want you guys to really start targeting what you're getting into. So these can be older articles that bring context. Understanding, hey, maybe I need to learn about this topic and what's been done in the past. Okay. Maybe it's something that comes up consistently that you're not really familiar with. You keep seeing this thing pop up in these articles. Every single article that you read, you're not familiar with it. Let's use those keywords to search for some articles. As always, they must be scholarly journal articles, and they need to address the gap in research that you have identified here, or at least expand upon it. Like I said, you're going to be changing that gap in research as we go. So these things need to be, even trying to poke holes in that gap in research. Maybe you're looking for an article that's, an alternative to that gap in research. Maybe we shouldn't be making a drug to help this disease. Maybe instead therapies are a result. So read the articles on therapies as opposed to the drugs, and to really make you an expert in the field of that disease. And as always, the 2 things that need to be true for every article that you read. Do they answer questions that you have? And do they deepen the knowledge, your knowledge in the field? Because at the end of the summer, again, we need to find a true gap in research. To recap, we need 2 more articles. Older articles are fine now as long as they contribute to the context and the story. So now let's talk about being an expert in your field. The number one thing we can do to be an expert is to make this part of our lives. People who are experts dedicate a piece of their life to this. So one of the things we can do is jump into social media. I know probably all of us are on social media. If you're not, congratulations, you have resolve that I wish I had. But probably like you guys, I find myself when I need, time to do something or have time to kill, I'm just scrolling on my phone. So what we want to do is let's add some science stuff to our feeds. Okay. So also we should be reading some outside sources, just some like regular articles on the internet from like wired.com or something like that. BuzzFeed sort of things. Let's get those articles into our regular digestion of content, if you will. YouTube videos about science. Let's get those into our regular feeds as well. I know YouTube's kind of social media as well, but all of these things, we want to get these outside sources in. They're also a good way to kind of test your gap in research. Are these articles going in a completely different direction, saying like the cure to this disease is going to be this, or the next type of engine that we're going to use on rockets is this, and your gap in research is totally different, right? Maybe it's time to rethink that gap in research or incorporate these new things into there as well. And the last one, this one is kind of interesting. I want you guys to be critical. When reading journal articles, we can generally trust that they are accurate for the most part. There's some nuance to that, but for the most part, we can trust journal articles because they are peer reviewed. However, outside sources in social media, we need to be more critical. And believe it or not, you guys are becoming experts in your field. You know more than the normal person. And you might start to find this as you guys read more and more journal articles. If you come across some like outside source talking about a new therapy, you might be like, this person doesn't even understand what's going on. Well, this is terribly written. So you guys are smarter than you think at this point. Okay. So be critical of these outside sources as you're reading. Let's talk an example of social media that we can get into. The first one I'm going to use is Reddit. Reddit is my social media of choice as an old person. But as you can see, Reddit Science is just kind of a list of some recent articles that have been posted. So you can see, like the first one we've got on here is kind of like psychology related, talking about anxiety. The next one is environmental science. The next one, biology. The next one, engineering. You can see there's tags on them, so you could sort by whatever field you want to get into. Also, notice the rules. If you look down there on the right-hand side, on the bottom right of what's on the screen right now, you can see the first rule is it must be peer-reviewed research. So it's kind of interesting, but I'd like to talk about what we're seeing here. I want to talk about being critical. So one of the articles I came across here a couple days ago was kombucha tea decreases hypoglycemic sugar spikes in people who drink it regularly. Wow, that sounds absolutely incredible. However, if I just read the title, I'd be like, I got to start drinking kombucha. But if you actually read the journal article that is linked here, or just jump into the comments and see what other people are writing about. Some people in the comments pointed out the sample size in that study was 7 people. 7 people. That is not conclusive. There were also 8 authors on this study that only had a sample size of 7 people, which seems like a lot of authors for a study of that scope. And someone looked it up. 2 of those authors were invested in companies that produce kombucha. So maybe there's another agenda going on here. And I think that's kind of the critical nature that we need to be looking at things with. Okay. Next, you can find something on Instagram. Here's a post about the James Webb Space Telescope. So for those of you that look into astrophysics, this is a new telescope that was just launched recently, and we're getting the most detailed pictures of the universe that we've ever seen, and tons of experiments are being run on this telescope. So this might have, following accounts like this, you might find out that they're launching this telescope. And now it's time to look into some of the journal articles about the experiments that they're going to run. So it can be a great jumping off point into what we're doing. So I want to expand our knowledge base, guys. So this benchmark, what we're going to be doing is a few things. One, I want you to follow 2 social media feeds. And in the document posted on Classroom, you're going to write down what those social media feeds are. We'll check them out, and maybe we could, share them with the class and kind of go through them. Next, we're going to be finding 2 outside source articles. So 2 articles that are cutting edge in your field that are not journal articles. So I want you to do some searching and take note of where you found these articles. Might it be good to, check back in on this website when you get a chance? And then, as always, anything you read, anything that you add here should be answering questions that you have and deepening your knowledge of the field. All right, so with that said, let's get into what is due. You're going to have 2 more articles, which means in your spreadsheet, you should have 8 articles in your field. So you're going to get into that spreadsheet, you're going to update the log, and you're going to be updating your library with those new articles. So those PDFs are saved in Google Drive, and then we have them in that library section of our spreadsheet. Then you guys are going to have 2 social media feeds and 2 outside source articles. You're going to be putting links to those in the document on Google Classroom, okay? And you're also going to be updating your gap in research. After you've read these 2 articles, you might be updating your gap in research either by adding more detail to it, okay? Or by revising it because you've learned some new things. So we want to be updating our gap in research, and the document on Classroom will explain exactly how I'd like you to do that. Again, I would like to kind of recap here with that changing these deadlines is okay if you need to change them. However, you need to contact me and let me know that you are changing this deadline. Okay, this should not be something that's last minute. It shouldn't be like, I need an extra day or 2. This should be like, I'm going to camp these days. This is the date I will have them done by. Okay, so you're simply going to email me and tell me when they are done by. Simple as that. All right, let's talk about our end of summer goals and just recap again what we're moving towards. Again, we're moving towards having 10 articles in our field. All of these articles are going to give us some evidence and help with your story leading up to that gap in research so we can write a review of literature. You're going to have a gap in research that is detailed and specific. And then finally, you're going to have a review of literature outline, which is going to be the point of our next video. So let's wrap it up with some advice from another scientist. If you recall, Eustachio Speltakis was the scientist we cited before, and today we'll be citing another scientist. I've always said this about our science research program. Science research, you get out what you put in. You guys sat through the symposium at the end of the year, and you hear these stories about how science research was life-changing for them and all of these wonderful things about this science research program. But the people you are hearing from are the kids who put in a tremendous amount of time and effort, and blood and sweat and tears and all of those things. So in science research, you could do the bare minimum. You could get by. You could be a member of the class. But if you really want to do something with this, you've got to put in more than the bare minimum. You've got to be putting in the time to really read, learn, and be an expert in your field. Okay? So all of these numbers of articles that I'm putting out there, that you should have 8 by our next benchmark, these are minimum numbers. You can certainly have read more and certainly have learned more. So with that said, keep in touch. If you have any questions, concerns about anything, just let me know. And if you need to extend a deadline, you need to email me to let me know before that deadline. All right. So Have a great summer, guys. I'll see you for our third check-in coming up, the dates of which are all on Google Classroom, so you could jump into that and develop.